Well, I feel like I've just seen a Broadway show. I don't know about you.
Oh my God, thank you.
You never know. You really never know, since I really don't have any control over the musicians. You never know what's going to come up. So we were, thank you, Matt.
Thank
That
you.
was fabulous. That was fabulous. While you're watching the video, we just were treated to an incredible song by Matt Boyd. Matt Boyd. Fantastic. All right. So, that's going to not segue real good, but I'll make it. Over into, as we journey this thing called life, okay? At times we can be feeling alive, or we can be tossed and turned by conditions, by all the changes that take place, the circumstances in life. And we can occasionally be thrown off course. Now, maybe that's not happened to you. I think most of us. I'll ask a rhetorical question. I'm sure it has happened to you. Yeah. It's rhetorical, so. But I suspect if I did ask you right now if you're going through anything like that, most of you would answer yes. You know, we get these nice calm waves of life, or no waves, just like placid water, which feels great, and then we get tidal waves. It's life. The important thing is that we learn from each and every circumstance and every experience that we go through. So, I'm skipping over stuff. If you didn't fall into one of these categories of, it's happened already, I'm going through it, it will at some point. Life has this. I want us all to really know that we're not alone, that we all go through all different kinds of experiences. I can remember thinking that I was the only person, and I'll never get over this. I really felt that I was like one of the very few people that felt anxiety over things, like sometimes even crippling anxiety, until I went to a workshop a number of years ago with the fabulous Martha Creek. And she goes, and if you know Martha Creek, I can't really imitate her. She's coming next year. She's booked 3 years in advance. But she goes, honey, we're all hardwired for anxiety. That one sentence really stayed with me, as you can hear, forever. Because we're not alone, and that's the point. We're not alone. We all go through stuff. And the beauty is we're going to get into today about talking about the changeless while the changes are going on. Because within us, there is a changeless source of divinity within each and every one of us. And that's what we want to get into today. Ernest Holmes wrote this in one of his books. First at home, in the silence of our own thought, let us heal ourselves of fear, of doubt, of uncertainty. Let our lives be peaceful. Let our lives be whole. Then shall that peace which is God abiding within us radiate from us. When we really feel the peace, when we really feel the joy, as the song had said before, as we really feel the love wash over us, we can radiate it out. We can radiate it. And so today we're going to begin the journey of returning home to the changeless. And we all know what home is, right? Like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, but I've got to do that series again. I love that series. It's a whole series of the Wizard of Oz. And it's so great. So returning home is returning within. Everything is present all of the time within us. And that place within us that Holmes spoke about, even in the midst of change, the changeless ever-presence of the divine is there to support and guide us. And I got to tell you, I really practice these principles, these words, these truths, whatever you want to call it, the faith of knowing that there is a changeless presence within me. So no matter what I'm going through, I'm going to learn the lesson from it, and I'm going to know that the divine within me is always supporting me. If we can hang on to that, then we got the spirituality. That's why that foundation class is so important, because it's going to teach about the creative process that we all create our lives, how we respond to every situation determines the outcome, determines how our lives will flow and in what direction. But we get that responsibility to choose. So, did you hear the one about the middle-aged woman? I'm great at segues on it. Who had a heart attack? She was rushed to the, it's not funny. She was rushed, don't let that. She was rushed to the hospital, and immediately she was on the operating table. She had a near-death experience, and in that experience she saw God and asked if this was it for her. God said, oh no, you've got another 30 to 40 years to live. So the woman came back into her body, and the surgery was a great success. And she decided while convalescing in the hospital that she's going to extend her time and have a little work done. Why not? She's in there. A little cosmetic work done. She's going to live another 30, 40 years anyway. So what the heck? So she did. And she had a facelift. And she had a liposuction, and she had a tummy tuck. And then she even had her hairdresser come in and dye her hair, so she'd leave looking beautiful. After she was lifted, tucked, dyed, and coiffed, because we all get coiffed, she immediately walked out of the hospital a new woman. And immediately after that, she was hit by an ambulance and died. As she arrived at the pearly gates of heaven, in a pretty foul mood, as you can imagine she would be in, right? She confronted God. What's the big idea? What's the big idea? I thought you said I had another 30 or 40 years to live. To which God replies, to tell you the truth, you've changed so much that I didn't even recognize it. It goes with the talk. Somehow it does. So sometimes the changes that come upon us seem so great that we don't even recognize who we are or what is going on, that we just don't even recognize it. But today, we're going to ground ourselves in that which never changes. Because we have this gift that I was never taught it growing up. I could just feel it. This presence within. And that's the changeless presence that goes nowhere, that nothing can alter, harm, destroy in any way. That's the important thing I want us to leave with today. But sometimes we, as we ground ourselves in this idea, we don't always recognize that that presence is there for us, to love us, to guide us, always guiding us. And that's when we return home. We return home. And that's what I want us to do this morning, to give a foundation for handling change. Any kind of change. I don't care what the change is, whatever it is in life. Whether it's the type of change that makes you go, yes, thank goodness, or goodness, no. Because there's all different kinds. There's good change, and there's changes that don't feel good, but there's good in every change when we look for it. I'm telling you, it doesn't feel like it when you're in the middle of it. It really doesn't. Whether it's finding a new job or losing one. Whether it's getting married or getting divorced. Whether it's, really, that was one of my greatest changes. I mean, wow. I got divorced and my whole life turned around and was fabulous. But it's not like immediately, fabulous. It's not like, okay, here's the divorce, but there's this time, which we're going to talk about later. There's this time in between where your faith is really tested deepened, solidified, uplifted. So whether it's moving into your dream home or being evicted from one, these are all different kinds of changes. Whether it's having a baby or having someone that you really love pass. Maybe this applies to us right now because we're going through a change, a joyful gathering. Maybe it's having old board members resign and having a whole new board step in. Maybe that's the change. And all kinds of things are in between all of that. So whether the change we face, whatever the change we face is, our foundation truly is the knowledge of one thing, and that one thing is that divinity within us is changeless. Absolutely changeless. And that thing is, Ernest Holmes defined it in his book, and he calls it that all the time, the thing itself, with a capital I. The thing itself. The divine itself. He also wrote, forms come and forms go. That's the thing about change, by the way. It doesn't last. It's always moving. That's the whole point of this talk. In the middle of all the change, there is that changeless. Let us anchor ourselves in that. But this is what Ernest Holmes says. Forms come and forms go, but the power back of them is changeless. Form is temporary, but mind is eternal. And you might not understand what mind means. I say it all the time up here. There's one mind, that's God's mind, that's my mind now. Ernest Holmes coined that, I think. And that's the whole point of that class, Foundations of Science of Mind, is to understand what that really means, that mind. Emma Curtis Hopkins, called the mother of New Thought, which is what we are, New Thought, in her Christian, this is a book that I've used so many times in Roots that I can never say. Scientific Christian Mental Practice, a really great book. She wrote this: the spiritual or real world is not changed by your words. It is the same changeless good, yesterday, today, and forever. So to know that it's permanent, that changes divinity within ourselves. We might say that God is changeless in the ever-changing. And when we ground ourselves in the changeless, we can have a whole new perspective on change. Anybody with me on this?
Yeah. Yes.
In fact, when we are grounded in the changeless, every change that comes into our lives can propel us forward. As we tend to get stagnant, stuck. So change comes about sometimes when we refuse to get out of that familiar comfort zone. So stuff takes place in life where it's kind of hard to stay in that same place. It's kind of hard to stay. You can, but you'll never move forward. There's always a lesson in every single experience that we have. Every change has within it the possibility of greater good. Even when you feel the foundation, it can feel like this underneath you just shift and move. It feels like it's crumbling away. So I'm going to quote from Jesus, the master teacher, one of them anyway, there's many master teachers. He said this about a strong foundation, you probably heard it before. Whoever comes to me and hears my sayings and does nothing is like a man who built a house on the earth without a foundation. And when that flood arose, the stream beat vehemently against that house, and immediately it fell. And the ruin of that house was great. But he who hears my words and follows them is like a man building a house who dug deep and laid the foundation of a rock, against which the stream beat vehemently, but could not shake it, for it was founded on the rock. It was a solid foundation. What is your rock? What is your spiritual belief? What do you hold on to when those times of change really shake you to your core? Do you have something? And if you don't, you'll find yourself just like in a storm, just being blown around in it, because you are not anchored on a foundation, a rock of spirituality. Your connection, however you want to connect. This is not an organized religion here. This is a spirituality. It is a religion because we believe in something greater than ourselves, but we also believe that greatness is within us, each and every one of us. We have that changeless presence within us. So in other words, to keep your spiritual vision clear, to be clear, even in the midst of confusion, to have that clarity, to trust that that which is changeless, that we will build a strong foundation on the rock that will weather that storm, and any change that comes our way, we will be able to feel grounded in that truth of knowing I'm not alone. We say it all the time that the universe has my back, the universe meaning the spiritual energy that we call God. The death of a loved one is one of the most severe changes, one of those hardest changes you can go through. And it is through that kind of experience, though, that the recognition of the changeless is vital. To know that we're all eternal. Each and every one of us are eternal beings. And that's the changeless part of us. And we may face many, many changes of lesser severity on a regular basis, but truly let us remember that in any change, no matter what the magnitude is, when one door shuts, we all know this, another one opens. Sometimes it doesn't happen right away, right? So when one door closes and another shuts, we have an opportunity. Let us look at every door that closes on us. Every major transition in our life is an opportunity for us to move forward. When we really take that, this is responding. When we take that and we just don't react out of that complete fear and anxiety that can cripple us, but we can even have the anxiety. We can get to that point where we're filled with fear and still know that there is good somewhere that is taking place from this. This is an opportunity for me to learn something, for me to grow one way or another. If you're like me, it's going to take that, and I say this, and it's really, I hope for no more, 2x4s, but they pop up every year, and I have to be whacked. Because, you know, all the little stuff I can brush away, I can just brush it away, and it won't make me move in the direction where I know it's my highest good. But when I get slammed, or when you get slammed, it's like you must make a choice. And when you make a choice, a real choice, a clear choice, a brave, it takes courage. When you do that, then you get to an opportunity to create something new. So the affirmation to that is, I am open and receptive to my greater good. Can you all say that? I am open and receptive to my greater good. Just to know that. I am open and receptive to my greater good all of the time, no matter what. Got to practice this spirituality. So we talk about it's practical spirituality. And if you don't use it, it is of no value, no real value. You just feel good for a little while. And I once said, a while ago, it's true that when one door closes, you know, another opens. And like I said, that hallway, it's not always immediate. You know, there's a hallway like in between in my brain. And that could be a real challenge. That's where your faith is really tested, in that hallway. So never allow change in your affairs. This is important. Your situations to become that closed door. A door that you can't even see another door to open. That bars and blocks your faith to progress. And to really know that every single ending is a new beginning. Just these are the things we think of. I'm inviting us to think of as we go through change. And some of that change is quite painful. To know that there's a new beginning. There is a new beginning. So I love this one example. I've used this before, but it fits in here. It's really good. It's of the composer Franz Joseph Haydn. As a small child, he was trained to sing and was taken at the age of 8 into the cathedral choir of St. Stephen's in Vienna. Here he sang solo parts and received valuable musical instructions as he earned his living. This is good for you to remember as you go up through Broadway. He was a member of this choir for 9 years. So then when his voice broke, as it does sometimes, and the director fired him and he turned him into the streets at 17. He had lost everything. He was penniless. He had nothing. But that didn't stop him. 17. He soon made a better career as a teacher and then a composer, and then in 1760 he was made musical director at the court of a prince in Austria. He held this position most successfully for 30 years. And then the prince died. And the musical group was disbanded. And Haydn, now he's 58 years old, no pension. But then I think right now, not many people get pensions anyway, so, it's nothing, again, but that didn't stop him. Once more, without work, he was. But he refused to give up. And he accepted commissions for 2 composing and conducting ventures in London. And again, did some special teaching. In fact, one of his students was Ludwig van Beethoven. He was his pupil for a while. But it was during this time where Haydn wrote his most profound and famous works. And twice in his life, remember this, he'd been cast aside. Twice in his life. Looked like he was a failure, didn't it? There is no such thing as failure. But he built a new and better life each and every time. Each and every time. Why? Because he never gave up hope in himself. We don't give up. We are children of the divine, and we truly mean that. That's the changeless presence in us. Because one thing doesn't work does not mean something else will not. And we might, usually we do, go into an area where we've never been before. That great unknown, and that's where the divine resides, in that great unknown. So if you already had your house built upon the rock to meet every change with unchanging faith in the certainty of that divine flow that's always there. The only thing that stops this divine flow that we hear about all the time is our own beliefs. It's a block that can't flow unless we accept it. We've been created for the delight of God itself, right? We're created out of God's stuff. But when we get in our own way and we refuse to let that divine flow through us, then we cannot experience the great good that is the truth of our being. We've got to get out of our own way. So you don't want to wait, and you don't want to be like the Scottish atheist who was spending a quiet day fishing when suddenly his boat was attacked by the Loch Ness Monster, and he was swallowed up. He's an atheist. He was swallowed up. One easy flip, and that beast tossed him right in the air. As the man sailed head over heels, he cried out, "Oh my God, help me!" All at once, the scene like froze. Think of a movie. Like froze. He's midair. And he screams to the side, "Oh God, help me." And this booming voice came down from the clouds. "I thought you didn't believe in me." "Come on, God," said the atheist. A minute ago, I didn't believe in the Loch Ness Monster either. So, it's a matter, you get to choose what you want to believe in. You get to choose. There's no right or there's no wrong way to choose. But the one that's going to serve you, it's going to serve all of us, and it's been my experience, is to have this connection with source energy, to have this connection with the changeless presence of the divine. This is going to push us into the direction, like Hayden, where, all right, that's over, let me move on. One step in front of the other, new changes, new possibilities, always. So I would say for all of us to get our alignment in place, that grounding into that knowing that we are truly creations of this one source of pure energy. We all are, whether we're in body or not. So I invite you now to use this moment to remind yourself and to align with that changeless self, to recognize that the divine is ever present. Nearer than our hands and feet, closer than our breath, it is the truth of our being. We are absolutely one with an invisible force of good. And if we can get ourselves to believe that, it shifts everything. We don't become the victims of circumstances anymore. We don't become victims. Because I don't know about you, but I got really sick of being a victim in my life many years ago. You know, oh, this always happens to me. And you repeat the same thing over again because that is like attracting like. So we step out of that victimhood into empowerment, and changes that take place are taking place for us to learn. If we believe that, I have found in every single situation, when I am open to learn the lesson, I don't care what it looks like, how it's being presented to me, but what can I learn from this? It enriches our lives. It propels us forward. We get to express the joy we really are, the love we really are, the peace. Don't you love being in that state of peace? Chaos. Sometimes we go through it. But in the divine, there's peace. And it's like the hurricane. In the middle of it, there's the stillness. So it's in the middle of all of these circumstances, there is a calm. There is a presence. And unlike a hurricane, there's no harm. There's no harm. There's only that peace prevailing. And that's what I wish for each and every one of us, that we may live our lives with that feeling of peace. Because once you have that feeling of peace, once you feel connected to a power that is greater than yourself, everything is possible. Everything. There's nothing impossible. So let us take that with us this week. And we're going to continue this series for the whole month of September in different ways, but the same idea.